So my name's Julian. I'm here from Wine Australia. We're the statutory authority. So pretty much the remit is to sell more Australian wine at a higher price point. And my role within that is to focus on sustainability, making sure that we're doing it in an efficient way, but also because increasingly sustainability it's a market access issue. And so particularly if we look at alcohol monopolies around the world, different countries, different provinces, they have the equivalent of, say, a Dan Murphy's, but it's run by the government. And in a lot of these monopolies, if you want to sell your product to them, you've got to meet a whole lot of standards, and there's an increasing amount of those standards are related to sustainability. So because of that, in 2022, we looked at the Australian wine sector and the total emissions arising from it. So this includes grape production, wine production, and then taking this product to market overseas. Now, roughly about 60% of Australian wine heads overseas, so only 40% is actually drunk and sold within Australia. And you'll notice that the emissions arising from the vineyards and the winery is pretty low, right? So if we want to pull these major levers to decarbonise the sector, most of that opportunity comes from packaging or from transport. And so the reason why packaging makes up almost half of all those emissions, so that packaging, that also includes supply chain, so it's all the purchased goods and services as well, but the majority of that's glass. So as soon as you put wine into glass, you have a product which is, let's face it, wine's it's a funny shaped bottle. Why is it that shape? I don't know. I've tried to look up the history of it. I can't arrive at a definitive answer, but it's really poor packaging efficiency. Now, to make glass wine bottles, you need a furnace which is at about 1400 degrees. So huge amount of energy goes into producing these glass wine bottles. So we looked at modelling 11 different emissions reduction initiatives, and these were pretty conservative. We looked at it and thought there's about an opportunity by 2030, we think, to decarbonise 42% of those emissions. But we're also at a situation at the moment where there's a glut, there's an oversupply of wine within the global sector and particularly within Australia. So grape producers are doing it really tough. Family businesses that are making wine are doing it really tough. And so we thought, how can we use this as an opportunity to help solve some other issues for the sector? And we know that grape production in particular is tied to, like most farmers, you're a price taker and you're often hooked on input costs, so costs for fertilisers, costs for electricity and costs for chemicals. So what can we do about that to help decarbonise and also drive down costs? So within the vineyard, the typical way that we deal with, say, a disease outbreak or to prevent a disease outbreak, I'm sure that a lot of people will notice that the climate is changing. We're starting to get a lot more summer storms. That's more disease pressure within vineyards. And so the way that most farmers deal with it is that top left image that you're seeing of a spray unit going out, and they'll spray anywhere between 6 and 14 to 16 times in a year. So it's a huge amount of chemicals going out, and this is all a preventative action. It's not curative. So what you're trying to do is prevent the incidence and severity of diseases like powdery mildew. So we understand that there's this rise in ag tech, and at the moment there are trials being conducted in close to the Grampians in northwest Victoria, and we've got these units out there. So this looks like a giant mobile solarium. It's not that. This is an autonomous robot, so it can track up and down the vines, doesn't require any manpower. It maps each vineyard, and all that's doing is putting out UVC rays. So UVC kills these fungal spores, so it prevents downy and powdery mildew before it happens. And we know that there's a huge cost saving through doing this rather than relying on chemicals and going out, and just the labour component, These things can run 24/7, but they're best operated at night. Coupled with that, looking at other precision agricultural buggies. So the image that you're seeing down on the centre bottom of your screen, that's an autonomous spray vehicle that is programmed to only spray certain types of weeds. So it can recognise certain types of weeds, and so it's only spraying the weeds that you want to kill within the vineyard. So you're being more efficient with your chemical use. We also wanted to focus on winery and packaging, what can be done within those sectors. People often think of the grape and wine sector as one. They're quite separate. Often you'll find that organisations are vertically integrated, but often they're not as well. You just have farmers who are producing grapes and they're selling to a winery. And we know for thousands of years, packaging has largely been, wine's been around for thousands of years, right? And for at least the past kind of 300-400 years, it's been kept in glass bottles. And we're looking to disrupt that because we know that if we put wine into an aluminium can, if we put it into a bag in a box or an alternative packaging format, that's going to drive down emissions and increase our packaging efficiency. Coupled with that, it's trying to use the natural elements. We know solar is a huge thing within Australia. We've got an abundance of it, particularly within our wine regions. So how can we best use solar? How can we use things like vehicle-to-grid technology? Ballycroft Winery within the Barossa is the first winery, I think, in the world to look at vehicle-to-grid technology. They're a small producer. Like most of 95% of the wine industry is small producers, but they're looking at how they can use a Nissan Leaf to store energy during the day with a solar panel, store it in their Nissan Leaf, sell it back to the grid at night, or use it within their own winery operations over vintage periods. You also notice that up the top there's an image of the new Barossa Barrel Hall with Treasury Wine Estates. They're probably the big McDonald's in the room when it comes to the Australian wine sector, but they're looking at automating and using electric technology to save time, to save money. So we do have this issue around, I'll go back to this image, around this transport sector as well. So I was really happy, Jeff, to see the guys from, is it Heidi? We really want to attack this transport sector, and would love to have any conversations with people here today around technologies that are available to address this, because this is a massive market access issue for the sector. Thank you.